to a new video. Today I am going to be doing quite a big unhaul, and I don't do unhauls very often, but frankly I just have no room on my shelves, which is kind of ridiculous considering how many shelves I have in my room. So I have to get rid of some books. So I do want to preface this video, if I happen to be unhauling your favorite book of all time or a book you really love, no offense, I need the room on my shelves because I've bought a lot of books recently and I have nowhere to put them, and I'm tired of having books stacked on the ground. A lot of these books are just ones that I just don't think I'm going to get to, or I don't think I'm going to reread. I think there's kind of a common thread among them. A lot of them are YA fantasy, and that's not because I don't want to read any more YA fantasy. It's just that these are all older ones, and at this point I would rather read some YA fantasies that I'm excited about, and that's just not these right now. And if in the future I decide, wow, I really wish that I had read that book, I will go rent it from the library, or I'll suck it up and buy another copy. So it's not that big of a deal. I just need the room on my shelves. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, first in my stack is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I have read this book. I remember enjoying it. I just don't think I'm going to read it again. I don't think I'm going to read any of the sequels. I don't really remember the details of this book very much, but I did like it when I read it, and from what I remember it has good LGBTQ plus rep, and I want to say mental health rep as well. Don't quote me on that, I can't remember the details, but I liked it when I read it. I just don't think I'm going to read it again. That's all there is to be said about that. Next, Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton. I think I got this book on sale on either Amazon or Book Depository, and I just think that it's just not one I'm gonna pick up. It's a YA fantasy. It does sound vaguely interesting, but frankly, I don't like the cover. It's one of the like all glossy covers. Not that that's that important, but I just don't see myself having the mental capacity anytime soon to dive into like a full-on fantasy world. Like, this does not take place on Earth or, you know, like any real type of world, and I just don't see myself really wanting to read that in the immediate future. That being said, if for some this book goes viral on TikTok and actually it sounds really good, I'll rent it from the library. It'll be fine. I just don't think I'm gonna get to it anytime soon. I haven't read a lot of like expansive fantasies like this in a while, so I'm gonna go ahead and let this go to someone who's just discovering YA fantasy and wants to read all of the fantasies that there is. Next, not a YA fantasy, but it is YA, An Abundance of Katherines by John Green. I love John Green, but I never read this, and I just don't see myself reading it now necessarily. I'm keeping The Fault in Our Stars, I'm keeping Turtles All the Way Down, like I'm keeping the ones that I remember reading and loving, but I never really made it past The Fault in Our Stars in my love for John Green. I love John Green and I love him as a person, but I didn't read all of his books in high school because I was reading a lot more fantasy than I was reading contemporary. I really just loved The Fault in Our Stars and kind of never made it past that. And this is one of those things, like I bought this like, oh my god, I need to read all his books, but it's okay. I will let someone else discover An Abundance of Katherines, and I'm sure they'll love it more than I did because I didn't read it. Next, The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Clearly I bought this on clearance. I should get this sticker off before I bring it into Half Price Books, but I don't see myself reading this ever. I don't know why I bought this. If anything, I'll watch the TV show, and I'm sorry if the books are way better than the show. They probably are, but I just don't see myself reading this. It's an adult fantasy, which is not a genre I get into ever, so I just don't see myself reading this anytime soon. And I think I just bought it because, and I bought this like years and years ago, and it was a case of I went to Barnes & Noble, I wanted to buy something, I couldn't afford to buy any of the full price books, there wasn't a lot in the clearance like bargain bin, this was there, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll buy this. So I'm gonna let someone who actually wants to read it have it. Next, A Book of 1,000 Days by Shannon Hale. I have almost read this book quite a few times, but I've never actually read it, and at this point, am I gonna read it? Probably not. I bought this on sale as well, I think from Book Depository. In fact, I probably hauled this in a video like 5 years ago on this channel. I just don't see myself reading it. I've never read a Shannon Hale, so I don't have any particular attachment to her writing, which I know a lot of people do, but I have not read one by her. And I as much as I love the cover, the synopsis doesn't particularly appeal to me at this moment in time. I think it's something I probably would have liked in high school. Not that my reading tastes have evolved that much since high school, but I think it's just not something I'm going to pick up anytime soon, so I'm going to give it to someone with a better home. Next, The Black Witch by Laurie Forrest. I bought this at Barnes & Noble quite a few years ago, and part of me has been holding on to it because it does look really good, but frankly, it's so thick. I just don't know if I'm going to want to broach it anytime soon. Is that the right word? It's such a long book, and it looks fun, but it also looks kind of complicated, and it's so long. And I don't know anything about this book. I've never heard anyone review it. I've never heard anything about the author, so I don't really have anything telling me like, hey, it is a good book, you should read it. Could I look up Goodreads reviews? Yes, but have I? No. And I think it's just taking up a lot of room. I love the cover, it looks cool, but if I do want to read it, maybe I'll rent the audiobook sometime. Next, The Hamilton Affair by Elizabeth Cobbs. I feel kind of bad about this one. This one was a gift from someone in my family, so I feel less bad. Does that make me sound bad? Anyway, but I think partly, I think the Hamilton thing has kind of passed. I love the musical, I love the music. I don't think I have any more fascination with the man himself. I do not need to read a fictionalized version of Alexander and Eliza's love affair. I can just watch the play on Disney Plus. I think that satisfies my Hamilton needs. I don't think I need this as well. I do still have the biography on my shelf. I have such a sentimental attachment to that I probably won't get rid of it, but the other thing is, this is an adult historical fiction, and I just think realistically I would have a really hard time reading it because that's so outside my comfort zone, and I think it would just be too frustrating to read. So love the cover. It was a moment in time. I'm gonna let someone smarter than me pick this up and read it. So next are two books in a series, A Great and Terrible Beauty and Rebel Angels, both by Libba Bray. I have no particular reason for unhauling these other than I just don't think I'm gonna read them. These are, like, at this point, these are pretty old books. Let's see when these came out. 2003. So like, if I haven't read them yet, I don't think I'm going to read them now. I obviously did not acquire them in 2003, but I don't even really know what they're about. And I know that they were really popular in like the 2010s. I just don't think I'm gonna get to them. I'll let someone who like collects Libba Bray books have these. So if I'm going to focus on Libba Bray books, I'd rather actually read what are they called? The Diviners series, because I haven't finished that either. So next, I have The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. This was another case of, this is an older book. It's a YA fantasy. I just don't think I'm gonna get to it anytime soon. I do want to read Holly Black, that's not the point, but if I'm going to read Holly Black books, I'd rather focus on finishing the Cruel Prince series than reading this, which I believe is a standalone. Don't quote me on that. But like, I bought this years and years ago, and the book is even older. I think it came out in the 2015, so like, if I haven't read it yet, probably not going to read it. So next, I was very torn on this book because I do like this book, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Seth Grahame-Smith. I really did enjoy this book when I read it, and this one I believe also was a gift, but realistically I'm not going to go back and reread it. I have read it. I'm not going to read it again. I have already unhauled the sequels to it, and I figured, why not just get rid of this one too, because I'm not going to read it, so I'm gonna just let someone else have it, and if I do want to reread it, I'll just watch the movie because it's the same thing. Next, now this one is not that I don't think I'll ever reread this, but It's The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. Only reason I'm getting rid of this one on my shelves is that my sister has 2 copies of this book on her shelf. We don't need 3 copies of the same book in this house. So I'm gonna get rid of my copy because she loves this book more than I do. And if I ever decide, yeah, actually I do need to reread that right now, I can just go borrow hers. I loved this book when I read it. I don't see myself rereading it, but if I need to, I can borrow hers. So next, this one was kind of a hard decision too, but And I Darken by Kiersten White. I love the cover, and for some reason I have a lot of Kiersten White books, but I've never actually read one yet, so I decided to get rid of this one and keep my other 2. I have Slayer and the Frankenstein one, because as much as I love this cover, and I kind of love or at least I remember when I bought this, I loved the idea of the plot. I was sitting here last night, like, trying to read the summary on the inside of this book, and I couldn't even understand the summary. And I don't know if I'm just tired, if I'm just dumb, or what, but like, it sounds like a really complicated high fantasy, and I'm not doing that anytime soon, so it can find a new home. Next, I have Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. I don't know how to say her last name. It has a step back, but one that just has reviews on the inside. That's annoying. I bought this in 2015, which says a lot. I never read it. Historical fiction is not really a genre I read, hardly ever. Obviously, yes, The Book Thief is my favorite book of all time. That is a historical fiction, but I consider that a league of its own. And I know this is a book that I think has actually been compared to The Book Thief. I would put it along the same vein. I just don't think I'm ever going to get to it. I know I've heard really good things about it. I don't really feel like I'm going to be picking up a lot of historical fictions anytime soon, though. So I think I'm just going to let someone else give this a try. I know this is still a popular book, even though it's been so many years since it came out, so I'll let someone else enjoy it. I have to get this sticker off too. Next, Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. I bought this. It was a cover buy that I think I bought it at Target, or I bought it at Bookman's. I'm not sure. Yeah, it was Target because there's not a price written. Again, I read the summary last night and I was like, this sounds really complicated. High fantasy, political intrigue, which is great, just not something I want to read anytime soon. I think I have very little time to read in my life right now, and when I do read, I'd rather read something a lot lighter than what a lot of these are. And that's not without exception. There are books that are still fantasy or heavier topics that I do want to read. I need to narrow it down, and this didn't quite make the cut. And this is another one that I've never actually heard anything about this book or about this author, so I don't really know what the general opinion is from the book community on this book. So I'm not saying that makes me wary of a book. I don't need to hear other people's opinions on a book before I read it, but I've never heard anyone rave about this book, so I think I'm okay to just let it go for a little bit, and then maybe one day if I do feel like picking it up, like I said, I'll rent it. So we're getting there. Along the same lines, Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. I think I honestly might even have some of the sequels in the other room, and if I do, I'll unhaul those as well. This is another case of I tried reading the back and I was like, I'm not smart enough for this. There's witches, there's names I can't pronounce, there's a world of Mythica, I don't even know what all that means. I'm sure someone would love this book, and I want them to love it instead of me, because I just don't think I'm going to get to it anytime soon. I don't even remember buying this, so I have no idea. I think it's just not for me at this present moment in time, so I'm going to give it away. Next, I don't know if Half Price Books will take this one because technically it's an ARC, but I didn't get it sent to me as an ARC. I just happened to, it was an ARC that I was given when I worked at a bookstore. It's long since released, obviously. It came out in 2019. It's called The Last 8 by Laura Pohl. It sounds vaguely interesting. It's a post-apocalyptic debut for fans of the Fifth Wave series. I haven't read the Fifth Wave series, so I just don't think, as much as I've actually been liking sci-fi this year, I don't think this is the one that I'm going to read. I'd rather focus on the other ones I have on my shelf and continue reading those. Like, I'd like to continue the Illuminae files. I'd like to read the Renegade series. I don't think I need to read this one. So I hope maybe there's someone out there that will collect these this book and wants the arc of it, but I don't know if Half Price Books is going to take it because it's an arc technically, which I don't get. If it's an arc that's already out, I don't understand what the problem is, but whatever. My pile is becoming very precarious. We're almost done. Next is Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. I've had this book for a long time, and I think that if I had read it in high school, I probably would have loved it. In high school, I wrote a book, if you could call it that, a draft of a book that took place in Oz. I've always loved The Wizard of Oz, but I don't think that I really need to read this right now. I don't think it's very high on my TBR. I think it's an interesting concept. I just am not super interested in it right now. I think that there are others who would like it more than me. I have heard good things about Danielle Page, and I do, like, I would be interested in picking up other books from her. I don't know if she's written outside of this series, to be honest, but I'm sure she has. I would be interested in maybe trying some other stuff from her. I just don't really want to pick this up right now, so that'll go. And then the last books on this list are The Thousandth Floor and The Dazzling Heights by Katherine McGee. I don't know if they're going to take The Thousandth Floor because it's got some water damage. Maybe they won't notice. I don't know. I recently read this one for the second time, and I decided I hated it so much. I'm not going to read this one. I had these on my shelves for so long because, one, the covers are beautiful. And I read the first book in college, and I remember loving it, and then I reread it last month or so, and I was like, what was I thinking? This book, look, if you love this book, that's great for you, but I just had so many problems with it. I'm like, I can't do it. I could not continue reading this series. And I tried, like, reading the back cover. I'm like, what happens? Like, where could we go from here? And frankly, Avery is grappling with the reality of her forbidden romance. Is there anywhere in the world that's safe for them to be together? No, because that's your brother. I don't care that that's kind of a spoiler. No, there's nowhere for you to be with your brother. They're not actually brother and sister, but they have been raised as brother and sister their entire lives. So no, I'm not reading those. And honestly, I don't know if I could even recommend anyone read those. My pile's gonna fall over, but okay, so those are the books I'm unhauling. Again, if you love any of those, I love that for you. I just need room on my shelves. So I'm going to take these in to Half Price Books, along with the stack that I unhauled last time, literally months ago, and I haven't brought in yet, and see if they give me anything. I don't really know, or if they just want to donate them. I don't really care, but I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully this clears up my shelves a little bit so I can put all my newer books away. But yeah, that's my little unhaul. I find these kind of fun, to be honest. Even though it hurts to get rid of stuff that I've spent money on, like I said, I need room. And one day, maybe I'll have a library so big I won't ever need to do this. But until then, this is the process we have to go through. So I hope you enjoyed. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.